Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Danielle O'Connor. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and we have a full panel of NDs here with us today. I'm so excited. We are talking all about how to run an effective discovery call. And we know this is really important all through our practice. I think I've been in practice for 20 years now, and I think it's very important even in my daily business. But I think starting out, this can be a game changer for for being busy in your practice. And I think early on as a new ND or even an ND student, this is really something very important to learn of how you can convert those potential clients into paying clients, because that's how we get busy, right? So welcome. We've got a full panel. Like I said, we have Dr. Brianne here, we have Dr. Shelly and Dr. Jenna. So I'll just do a brief introduction, then I'll let everybody introduce themselves. So like I said, I'm Dr. Danielle. I work currently out of two clinics, one in Burlington and the other one just moved out to Etobicoke. And I've been in practice for 20 years, and my clinical focus is a lot on women's health. And then I also treat a lot of Lyme disease and children with developmental delays. So pretty eclectic practice in that sense. Dr. Brianne, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Brianne Callanan. I've been in practice for 6 years, and my primary focus is all about metabolic health, resistant weight loss, and low energy. And I run a primarily virtual clinical practice.
Perfect. And how about Dr. Shelley?
So, hi everyone. I've been practicing since 2010, so 13 years, and I'm in three clinics. So one is basically just my home office, and then I'm in a clinic in King City, and I'm also at Uptown Midwives in North York. So my clinical focus is primarily fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, pediatric health. So sort of like the full spectrum of perinatal care, but I do a lot of like digestive and hormone health as well.
Perfect. And Dr. Jenna.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jenna Priestap. I have a virtual practice, and my clinical focus is more so on maternal health. So really in conception, pregnancy, and really big on postpartum and helping rebuild the mother, as well as menstrual health. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's get started. I do have some questions for us to kind of all go through. And then if there's questions at the end, please feel free if you have questions that you want to put in the chat, and we can try and get to those at the end. So first off, I just want to ask everybody across the board, just in terms of a discovery call, how long do you usually block in your schedule for a discovery call? I know personally, I use 15 minutes. I try and get through those calls pretty quickly. So I usually try and be done them in 10 so I can make any notes that I need to, but 15 minutes is what I have in my schedule. How about you, Dr. Brianne?
I try to keep the discovery calls to 15, 20 minutes, but I block off 30 just in case things go awry or I need to do some emails in between calls.
Yeah, I do the same. Like I'll book a 30-minute call. Actually, I like to have the time. So any discovery call is virtual. Like I won't do those in person because I do have like the in-person practices. So they have to be virtual. And like I try to do them also like within 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes those calls are really quick. Like they book the appointment, but they know they want to book an appointment. You know what I mean? So like those ones are really quick, but the ones that are maybe contacting several naturopaths, they're trying to get some information, they're like comparing maybe fees and like some of the other stuff, those ones might need a little bit longer, right? I like to have that time. And then like Dr. Brianne said, like email stuff in between. But I'm like, Dr. Danielle, I don't actually make any notes on anyone.
No, okay.
Maybe once in a while something, but typically like they filled out a consultation request form, and I'll copy and paste whatever information they gave me on that form into like my Jane app. So I'll have insight on like what they're all about, but until they pay me money, I'm not taking notes.
Yeah, that's a good call. You know what it is? I literally just had somebody in here that came in, and they're like, oh, well, I know we already spoke on the phone. And if I don't have those notes, I'm like, I'd like to at least have a little bit of context, right? But that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. How about you, Dr. Jenna? How do you do for what do you do for timing?
Usually, honestly, like 15 minutes, and same thing. I don't make any notes. I tell them straight off from the beginning. I'm like, okay, we'll just keep this nice and casual. Like, I get to know you, you get to know me. And then that way, because it's really important to have that connection piece for the doctor-patient relationship, because if you don't really connect, then they're probably not going to book in anyway. So same thing, until we know that we're a good fit, which I'm fine either way. I'm not going to take any notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned, Dr. Shelly, and I know, Brianne, you're mostly like a virtual practice, but I do the same thing. My discovery call patients are virtual. Like it's usually phone, like it's phone, because it's just a discussion, right? As opposed to somebody coming in. And I think in the beginning, when I started practicing, I'd have patients would come in for that, that brief meeting. And then that's where I found it would get pushed to like longer and longer. And it was almost as if they thought that they were having an appointment versus this is just a discussion of, do we fit, right? So yeah. How about you, Jenna? Do you do in person at all?
No. I do completely virtual. But same thing. I remember when I did my interning year, like in fourth year, and same thing. I did a couple of the meet and greets, basically the free 15 minutes at the clinic I worked at. And I found very easily, it was kind of, you really have to learn how to hold that boundary into like, no, this is just a meet and greet. This isn't an actual visit. And they expect sometimes for it to roll right into a visit. Like I had one woman, for example, one time that was like, oh yeah, okay, so I want to book in. Can we start like right now? And then it's like, oh no, because this was just a 15-minute meet and greet. So it's a lot easier virtually keeping that boundary.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I also think that it's about how you position that visit. Like for me, I don't consider discovery calls like, yes, they're about seeing if we're a good fit. It's true. But how I explain them to potential patients is it's an opportunity for you to tell me more about what's going on and give me an opportunity to answer more questions, like any questions you might have. So I'm getting information like what's happening. I usually say it, we're like, what's happening? What's going on? How can I help you?
Yeah.
And I just get them to talk. Like if they can talk to me and then I can sort of give them my approach, that's how we know if we're a good fit. Cause like I can feel that, but like, I don't want to waste my time or theirs to be like, let me tell you what a naturopath is. Like, no, like the fact that they've already booked that free consult is like, they're 1 foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just now my goal is to elicit some kind of like an emotional response from them, because once they get emotional, whether that's, like for like Brianne, who does a lot of like metabolic health and like weight loss, like I do a lot of weight loss too, in terms of like for fertility or postpartum. And it's like, I want to motivate those people. I want them to leave feeling really excited. If they feel excited and motivated, they're going to book with me.
Yeah,
but if they're kind of like whatever, like they might be like, I don't know if I connect with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think too, I wanted to ask all of you kind of how do you start your call, like to make it effective? And I think that that's one of those things that if you're starting a call and you're kind of like talking about like what naturopathic medicine is, or even like sometimes like I won't even talk about myself. Like when I start a call, I'm like, why are you here? Why are you here? Like, what's like, what's that hook, right? In a sense of like, why are you here? And then it's a matter of like, well, this is what I can do for you, right? Exactly. As opposed to like, well, I've been an ND for 20 years and I grew up here. Like they don't care about, like that. 100%. They want to know, how is it that you can help like the actual patient, right? So yeah. So, what, I'll just kind of go around and maybe ask about that. So Dr. Brianne, how about yourself? Like in terms of, that hook, or like really getting their attention in the beginning, like what is it that you do for your discovery calls?
I always outline the duration of the call. So we have the next 15 minutes together. The goal of this conversation is to see if we'd be a good fit to work together. I want to get to know about you. And then at the end, if there's any questions that you have for me, you're I'm happy to answer them. How do you feel about that? Is that okay? And then I always set out an email. It's automated ahead of time. Like, this is not a doctor-patient relationship. This is not no diagnosis, no treatment. This is just to understand if we are a good fit together. And then the next step would be booking an appointment and then explaining how they do that.
Okay. Yep, that's great. How about you, Dr. Jenna?
Yeah, similar. Like, I always say, okay, so we have the next 15 minutes. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on? And what I like to also kind of bring everything back to is like, okay, so then, and how is this affecting your life? I don't like the whole really stew in the pain point. Like, some people teach you like just kind of turn the knife almost. That doesn't feel good for me. So I more so like to, okay, what's going on? How is this affecting your life? And what's your goal? What are your goals? Like, what's your vision, basically? And we really play into that. And like, okay, so the way that we're going to get you more energy to play with your kids, for example, is the way I would approach it is I do blah, 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 blah. But seeing we're going to need a whole consultation to see what's happening with you personally, and really focusing on that. You're getting personalized advice. And then kind of moving forward from there. But I more so, like to focus on what's the vision, really playing in that, and then getting them. Because same thing that Shelly said, once you get that emotional response, then it's
like, then they're hooked. Then they're hooked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they're feeling super excited and like confident in what you're telling them, like in your approach, because we all have different approaches, right? It's like, and again, sometimes they're like they're searching, they're meeting with different providers. They're trying to gain an understanding of different providers' approaches, what that financial like investment looks like, all the different things. Are you more into supplements? Are you more into homeopathy? Because some people come in there with their own sort of views on what they want. Once you've got them hooked and they're like, yes, like that sounds really like strategic, or like whatever it is. That's it. You don't have to do it. You can just take their money and like make them feel good, right? Like, that's it, right? At the end of the day. And that's what people want. They just want to feel good. They just want to feel, they want to feel heard. They want to feel heard. A big part of the call is just making them feel heard. Oftentimes I tell them, you've already given me so much great information, but what we're going to do during our assessment is I'm going to ask you all about the same things we've talked about, and like way more. Like, we're going to go like this, like, then they're like, oh, like that's really good, because they feel like they've given me as much information as their medical doctor with like the max that they would listen to. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, you're just scratching the surface. Like, I have so many more questions.
Yeah,
and they're like,
absolutely.
I feel heard. And I think that's a big part of what it is. Like, they want to feel heard. They want to feel like they can actually reach their goals. And that's why I say, once you've gotten that hook, like, they're willing to invest. That's what it is. They're willing to invest, right? Whether they have benefits or no extended health insurance, if they feel like you can really help, and you don't need a lot of time to make them feel that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think too, that's another part of like when somebody is booking one of those discovery calls, like, what is it that they're really looking to get out of it, right? So they've got a problem and they are looking that you have the solution to that problem, that you are going to help, solve whatever it is that they're going through, that you're the right person for that, right? And I think a really important part is that you do literally say, yes, I can help you with this. And obviously you're not going to outline like, oh, like, you're going to take these supplements and whichever, but it's a matter of, like, to me, that's one of the things that you literally have to say, yes, I can help you with this. And then the other side of that, I would say, is if I have a discovery call and somebody's calling and it's maybe something that I don't treat very much, I am very confident in saying, I do not treat a lot of this, and I will refer you to an ND down the street, or, and I will actually give them a name, and being confident in knowing that it's okay. It's okay to, be really strong in certain areas and maybe not in some other areas, right? Where it's a matter of like, I'm good with referring, right? So I think that's another aspect of that. But again, I'll ask Dr. Brianne kind of same thing in terms of, what are the things that you say to people in terms of like, just, making sure that they're either being heard, or that you know, like that that their inquiries are that you can actually help them with what they need, right?
One of the things I do often ask is, have you seen somebody who practices naturopathic medicine or functional medicine before? And what was your experience? What worked, what didn't work? So I can get an understanding of what are they particularly looking for? Are they really focused on having comprehensive testing done? Do they need to see, you know, the before and after lab work? Because I think that provides a lot of information to you in terms of what are they wanting from you? Or if somebody has seen, you know, 10 different naturopaths already, I'm asking the question of like, okay, why me now? Right? Like, what do you think is going to be different in this encounter if the previous 10 experiences for you were not successful?
Right. Right. Okay. How about you, Dr. Jenna?
Yeah, pretty much like, yeah, in seeing what I think that really does help is asking, like, if I'm getting someone that has seen other naturopaths before, seeing like what hasn't worked. That way you're not kind of explaining the same thing. I wouldn't say that I've had many people come to me that have already seen multiple practitioners. Usually it is that they come to me and then I explain what the visit is going to look like, essentially, and then we kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also something kind of outlining, if somebody hasn't been to a naturopath before, what that looks like, right? So, and we probably all have kind of different setups in a sense, right? But explaining, okay, in your first visit, like Shelly said, we're going to go into a lot more detail. Like, this is only, you know, a 10-minute like intro. We're going to be asking you tons of questions, and that's going to be an hour long. And then a follow-up visit is this long, and like that type of thing. And there's potential for testing, and kind of giving them the idea, like the outline of what kind of the relationship is going to look like moving forward, right? So yeah, I think that's also, do you guys kind of outline that for your potential patients coming in, Shelly? Yeah.
100%. Like, I give them like a full breakdown of like what they will expect, right? Because I want them at that first appointment to not be surprised. I want them to go in knowing exactly what to expect. I mean, one of the things that I really try to emphasize for my patients is like, I want you to feel empowered. Mm-hmm. Part of being empowered is really understanding what you're doing and why. So I feel like that's equally important in just like the appointments that we're having. So if they understand, I'm having an initial assessment, it might be 90 minutes, it might be 60 minutes. In this time, we're doing, verbal assessment. If we're in person, maybe we're also doing some physical exam. I might be recommending testing at that time. I might be sending them the food diary, but I might not recommend any supplements. Mm-hmm. I might not recommend anything, actually. Yeah. And I need them to know that, so that when they leave, they're not like, well, what did I pay for? I want them to be like, okay, so like, this is really good. The first step has been done. I had the assessment. I have some testing. I'm going to go talk to my doctor. I'm going to do this food diary. I'm going to meet her next week. She's going to give me like a plan, and I want them to really understand what that looks like for them. So they're like, okay, this makes like really like strategic sense of why we're doing it in this particular format. And again, I know naturopaths practice differently. Not everyone does things in my way. Right. Mm-hmm. So I have to explain, especially like I find that a lot of people that have seen other naturopaths, they might still be actively seeing another naturopath, but they're like, but my naturopath doesn't do fertility or doesn't do pregnancy. So I'm seeing you for that. So they might have some other knowledge and some whatnot, but I'm kind of doing things in my own way. So it's important they understand why I'm doing things in the way that I'm doing it, so that they're, again, empowered and happy, and like it makes sense for them. So they're willing to actually do it, right? And do the work and see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. Now in terms of, and I know we kind of all have different times of like how long we have our discovery calls. But what do you guys do for time management? And I think this probably isn't even about like the discovery call, but more of like time management in general, because, we all have the patients that it's a 45-minute appointment and and you're kind of at 40-minute mark and you're like, geez, I should be like wrapping it up now. And we're kind of barely through our conversation. So maybe just in terms of like, you know, if there's techniques or ideas that you guys have in the sense of how do you wrap up those calls? How do you kind of keep things on track essentially? So, you know, I'll start with Dr. Jenna.
So throughout the visit, I've kind of had to learn that even like, okay, by the 10-minute mark, I should have this. Okay, by like, I try to just always pull it back in because I do have a lot of like chatty patients, and I love connecting with my patients and stuff and like being able to, I don't know, like connect and stuff. So trying to really keep on those goals and stuff. So by 10 minutes, we should really already be talking, okay, about how they're feeling and like how this is affecting their life. Okay, now by 15 minutes, I want to paint that vision. Okay, if it's not already like by 20 or like by 10 minutes, really painting the vision, for example. And then like, even if they do start kind of chatting away, kind of bringing it back to, okay, I absolutely have loved this conversation and connecting with you. Just want to remind you, this is only the 15-minute discovery call. So if you want to continue, like we can do blah, 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 blah. Like I have space, and really just bringing in that I have space this Friday, for example, if you want to continue, and just kind of, again, it takes practice. In the beginning, I'd be too nervous to be like, oh, sorry, but like I didn't have that yet. But then eventually you just kind of learn, you got to just practice and learn the boundary of like, okay, no, we only have this long, and then kind of setting it up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Dr. Shelly?
So I feel like I'm pretty cut and dry. So what I'll do is like, we'll talk, I'm getting their information, they're giving me their like concerns. I share my approach, and literally once I'm done, I just say, how does that sound?
Mm-hmm.
How does that sound? Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? That's it.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's pretty much like a yes or no.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're like, yeah, I'm like, okay, great. Let me take a look at my schedule. Let me tell you how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, like I take a deposit when I do an initial visit. So I'll say, okay, so if you want to book an initial appointment, it's $100 deposit. The deposit goes towards the cost of your initial assessment. When you have the visit, you'll pay the remaining balance. You'll get the invoice for the full amount. That's what you're going to submit to your insurance company. Right. So I go into that like little spiel, like I explain that to people. So I'm pretty cut and dry, right?
Okay.
There's no pressure. You know, people know like, sometimes I'll say there's no pressure. If you want to go look at your insurance, you want to reach back out to me, let me know. We'll organize all of that once you book your appointment. But basically, I want them to know that if they get off the call and they didn't book, that, you know, when they do reach back out and we do schedule something, don't be surprised. I'm going to ask for a deposit.
Right.
Right. And I'll tell you 100% of the times that I don't take a deposit, the patient doesn't show up 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So I have no problem taking a deposit. People are really great about it. No one gives me a hard time. That if they give me a hard time, they don't show up. They don't pay, they don't show up. So I just have chosen not to take those patients. And, you know, and I will refund people. So like, for instance, today I had someone who reached out to me for her and her husband. She was like, you know, can we just do me? And I'm going to say, wait on my husband. I said, no problem. I'm going to refund you the $100. Going to cancel this appointment, a non-issue. You know, I'm not keeping people's money for fun, but I want them to feel committed.
Right.
Yeah, I do pay upon booking as well. They pay the full amount for it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And usually it is just like, so you understand, because this is a longer time, and that way, because it is my time and I value my time, that I want to make sure that we're on the same page, that our commitment together and stuff. And I might have had like one person who was like, ooh, I don't know about that. And then I'm like, okay, when you're ready, I'm here.
Exactly. Say whenever you're ready. I just say, like, I book an hour-and-a-half appointment most of the time for an initial, unless I can tell that it's not going to take that amount of time. And I usually say, you'll pay the deposit at the appointment, you'll pay the remaining balance. So if it's an hour and a half, you'll pay the remaining 165. If it's an hour, you'll pay the remaining 100. And again, you get the invoice for the full amount. So for them, they're like, okay, I like that you're only charging me for the time that we're using. For me, I'm booking it in as an hour and a half because I want the extra time, because I don't want to be rushed. And I explain that it's one opportunity to give you an amazing assessment. Once that assessment's done, we don't get this chance again. People like that. Again, it comes down to people wanting to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And people who are really ready to have that, to be cared for, right? Like to take that
for
next
sure.
step.
It's
And
totally a mindset.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like we're segueing a little bit because I wanted to ask you guys about talking about fees too. But Dr. Brianne, and you can talk about same thing in terms of like talking about fees as well as time management. If you can kind of go into what you do with both of those.
I think because I do so much education on webinars and social media, individuals have a really clear idea of how I practice. And I'm very much promoting that online. Like, this is what you can expect in terms of seeing me. So I don't have a lot of questions when patients come to me about that actual process. It's more like, have you seen somebody who has these symptoms? Like, how would you approach it? Is this something that you can help with? A lot of the discovery calls are actually done by my nutritionist in my office. So they offer the free calls. If they want to do a discovery call with me in terms of a fee, I actually have a fee for that discovery call. It's not the same as an initial visit fee, but it is a fee for that time because I didn't like spending so much time doing discovery calls for free when I could see my paid patients. So that's actually something that's new in my practice, has been working really well, where there is that there's a little bit of an investment that they have to make for that call. And it's more just very simple, quick questions. And then in terms of the fee, that's all very public in terms of, this is what I charge for initial, this is what I charge for follow-ups based off of time, as well as a lot of those technical questions they're asking my front office staff too. Like they're more wanting me to tell them that this is something that I feel that we could do X, Y, and Z for.
Right. And I think that's great. You're able to like really spend that time into getting the point across of, yes, this is how I can help you, essentially, right? So you have like admin doing a lot of the other part, which that's the same thing with my clinic is I have reception. Reception is the one who talks all about like the fees. And so I don't even really talk about that in a sense, because they will just go through, how much the visits cost. So, which makes it easy for myself. Now, I know we're kind of getting to the end here, but one thing, kind of one takeaway that I want to talk about is, how do you get them booked? Like the step from the discussion of, this is how I can help you, this is how, because sometimes there's that discussion and then there's like oh, okay, well, I'll think about it, or, like that type of thing. And so I know for myself, and I think I'm probably pretty straightforward, like Shelly, in that sense of like, we talk about the things, I say, this is how I can help you. I pretty much say, does this sound good? Is this what you're looking for? And, I 98% of the time, yes, it is, because again, you've made that emotional connection. And then what I say at that point is, just hold on a minute, I'm transferring you up to reception and they will get you booked in. So there's no space for go home and think about it, go talk to 5 other naturopaths, whatever. I finish my discovery call and I say, hold on a minute, we'll get you booked in. And I know like I have reception, it depends on, what your clinical setup is like, but I always take it to that call to action, that next step, the let's get you booked in right now. And that's just the way it goes. And rarely do I have somebody say like, oh, I just want to think about this, like backing off. It's more of like, okay, yes, because then they're in the schedule. So it's on the go. It's already happening. Right.
Same.
So,
Same.
yeah. How about Dr. Brianne? How about you? How do you do that?
I do the same thing depending on the hours. So if they're booked in within the time frame of when my patient coordinator is working, exactly, transfer over, she'll deal with the rest, the additional questions, what that looks like. If not, then I will book them in, but I always make a note and I ask my staff, I'm like, did I do this right? Can you confirm?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like sometimes I don't know why I can't figure out how to book appointments properly, but I always make sure that they confirm. And then we have automated things that will go out in terms of, okay, here's what, a lot of them video format and text, where it's like, here's what you can expect from your initial visit. If you have labs within the last 6 months to a year, please send them over. And like, just like the directional steps on what they can be doing, some resources ahead of time, just so they have something if there's a little bit of a wait, where they can be actively, you know, educating themselves.
Wonderful. Dr. Shelly, how about yourself?
Same. So, you know, for me, I'm very, like I said, cut and dry. I'm a one woman show most of the time. I mean, in my clinic in King City, I do have like front staff, but most of the time I'll just be like, okay, do you want to book? Let's get that deposit. I'm in Jane. So I'm like, give me that credit card number. And then I just like book them in. Just like get it going. Sometimes I'll put them on a wait list if you know, they want to get in sooner, or depending on what the schedule looks like. I try to do very much like call to action, try not to like give them time to go home and sit and think. You know, it's fine, they can. And some people, you know, like they say to me, like, I'm a processor, like I need to sit and think about it. I really like what I heard. I just need to think. And like, I'll get an email or a call, or I'll see they'll book online. Like they know that they can go online and book, because they have to input their credit card information when they're booking online. And that's good enough for me in terms of getting a deposit, because once I see that, then I know I can take a deposit. Sometimes I won't even, once their credit card is in there, I'm like, that's good enough. I'm happy, you know. But call to action is the bottom line. Just try not to give them the chance to walk away. And like you said, talk to 5 more naturopaths, think about it, go on a mom group. And then people are like, oh, naturopaths, they don't know what they're talking about. And like, suddenly they're like questioning everything that they were thinking. Like, try to just like get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Right? How about you, Dr. Jenna?
So I'm more of a step back, just let it happen. Like we'll be talking and stuff. And then during the conversation, I'm like, okay, these are my fees. I see patients Fridays and Saturdays, just so you're aware. I'll say, like, if I have space open, I'll be like, my next availability is Friday at 11, if you'd like. But also here, I'm just going to send you the booking link, especially because it's pay upon booking, instead of like just waiting for, okay, now give me your number or anything like that. I'm like, here, I'm going to send you the booking link, and when you are ready, then book in. And I find that I attract people who are more like, okay, and then they book in right away, like 9 times out of 10. So I'm, instead of me kind of having the pressure of trying to get everything done, I'm like, if you have any questions, then okay, let me know. If not, here's the link. When you're ready, I'm here, and you know what we're going to do.
But I think too, because you have that booking link, like there's that action, right? So it's not like you're just kind of sending them away with like, give me a call sometime, but it's like, I'm sending you a booking link. So like, they know what that next step is. Right. And I think that's a really important factor of people know what the next step is, whether it's like we're booking an appointment, or like Dr. Brianne said, like they get those follow-up emails of like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. Right. So as opposed to them just, you know, not really knowing what's going on next. So that's wonderful. So we're going to end this. I just kind of want to, if everybody can just kind of make one comment in the sense of maybe just you know, a little tidbit of information that I think would be helpful for people in terms of you know, booking a good amount of successful discovery calls, like what they can do, what they can take away. So for myself, I would say a lot of it comes down to confidence, right? So if you're in the call and you're humming and hawing and you're like, oh, I don't know, like that type of thing, not going to convert very well, right? As opposed to like, yes, again, this is what I do. Yes, I can help you. Or if it's not, don't be afraid to refer, right? Like that type of thing. So that's kind of like my takeaway, that just, you know, be confident in your knowledge and skills in what you do as a naturopath. So Dr. Brianne, how about you?
I would say the 2 obstacles when it comes to discovery calls is, number 1, getting individuals on the calls. So the more, or what I found successful, is social media, webinars, having individuals commit to learning a piece about what I do, whether it's a piece about thyroid or a piece about insulin resistance. The call to action at the end of that is, here's the link to set up a time to connect if you feel like you wish to do so. That's been really helpful. And then the second obstacle when it comes to discovery calls is, of course, not providing them with medical advice on that call. So I always say to individuals, they're like, well, what about this? Like, what are your thoughts on this? I say, you know, you deserve the best possible health outcomes. You deserve like my best advice for you. And because you deserve that, I want to make sure that we have the time and space where I can really get to know you and understand your symptoms. How about setting up a call to do that? So really setting that boundary. And it's not that you don't want to give them information. It's not that you don't want to help them, but in order to provide them with the best advice, you really do need to book that call first. So don't be afraid not to give anything really, except for, you know, basic things in the discovery call.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Shelly?
I agree with you. A lot of it's just confidence, like confidence in how you're speaking with your clients or like, you know, your potential patient. Also just confident in your knowledge, like you said, Danielle, but also in your worth. There's like being confident in what you are worth and how much your knowledge is worth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Jenna, how about yourself?
Yeah, similar to what Shelly, well, all of you basically are saying, is being like confident in you have the knowledge and everything, but not feeling like you have to talk about that. Like remembering the discovery call isn't about you, even though you want to be like, I just finished school and I've been in school for 25 years. Like that's not what they're here to there to hear. Just really making it about them and like having the connection piece, while also, like Brianne said, not giving away too much. It's kind of an art in figuring out what to kind of really talk about and get that emotional response, while also still holding the confidence and boundary of, but I still value my time. And so we got to keep it to this.
Right. That's great. Well, thank you so much, everyone here. This panel has been wonderful. You know, there's a lot of great information I think that we've given. So hopefully all of these new grads get you know, a moving step forward in terms of booking those discovery calls. I think that's fantastic. Our next HealthBuddha new grad webinar will be on September 13th, and that's about mastering bookkeeping. So definitely sign up for that. Thank you, Dr. Brianne, Dr. Shelly, Dr. Jenna, so much for being here for our panel chat. We appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you on another webinar soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.